Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a total psychological mystery. It's something practically all of us experience, but very few of us actually know how to handle. We're talking about why we sometimes feel this lingering, incredibly unpleasant anxiety without having a single clue what the root cause actually is. If you have ever felt just generally off or stressed out for literally no apparent reason, you are in exactly the right place. We have all been there, right? You're just going about your day and suddenly you're carrying around this heavy, undeniable sense of unease. It just sits on your chest like an invisible weight. You might feel restless or distracted or super tense. But when you actually try to pinpoint the hidden thought causing it, the culprit is a total mystery. The source material refers to this as a lingering sense of dread that completely focuses on the future, basically generating worry about things that haven't even happened yet. But seriously, where does it come from? Okay, let's figure this out by looking at how our minds actually operate. Look, most of the time, our brain is running on pure autopilot. Our thoughts are a tool we use to navigate life, but we become so incredibly habituated to them that we forget they are just that, a tool. Think of it like a mechanic or a plumber who decides to carry their heavy metal toolbox absolutely everywhere they go. I mean, to dinner, to bed. They would be completely exhausted, right? Well, that is exactly what you do with your thoughts. You just lug them around everywhere, never giving yourself a single moment to rest. I love how the author of our source text, Riley, observes this. They say, of the 100 billion thoughts I've had in my life, 99% of them were bullshit. It's a funny way to state a really profound truth. The vast majority of our mental chatter is just completely unnecessary, wildly distorted, or flat out untrue. And yet, because we're stuck on autopilot, we completely buy into this mental chatter as our absolute reality. We are letting these unseen, totally inaccurate thoughts trigger very real, very painful emotions. So to solve the mystery of our vague, lingering anxiety, we have to wake up from that autopilot state. We need to develop a skill called metacognition. Now, metacognition is simply the ability to step back and observe your own thoughts without judgment. It's the skill of thinking about your thinking. By doing this, we actually separate our true identity from our passing mental events. Because here's the thing, you are not your thoughts. You're the awareness observing them. So how do we practically apply metacognition when we're feeling totally overwhelmed by that vague sense of dread? Well, we use a really powerful investigative tool to catch the hidden culprit causing your stress. It's a meditative practice we're going to call the blank space technique. It is brilliantly simple, yet incredibly effective for isolating those unpleasant, lurking anxieties. Here is exactly how you execute the blank space technique. First, you just close your eyes and notice your thoughts flowing without trying to control them at all. Second, you ask yourself a very specific, very simple question. I am thinking, or alternatively, what is my next thought? Third, and this is the absolutely crucial part, you deliberately wait for the next thought to emerge. You are purposefully creating a gap in your mental chatter. You repeat this phrase to yourself, I am thinking, and then you pause. In that blank space, you wait. You really, truly just wait. And you know what happens when you intensely wait for the next thought? There is no thought. You experience a moment of profound stillness. You have actively interrupted the automatic loop of anxiety. You're basically standing guard at the door of your own mind, waiting to see exactly who tries to walk in next. Once we create that quiet gap and wait patiently, the true nature of our anxiety finally steps into the light. When the next thought does arrive, you are completely ready for it. You catch it red-handed. And more often than not, you'll discover that the thought causing your dread isn't a rational fact at all. It usually takes the form of an irrational cognitive distortion, which is basically a built-in error in how the mind processes reality. Your blank space technique is highly likely to reveal a suspect from our mental most wanted list. Maybe you catch yourself catastrophizing, assuming the absolute worst-case scenario over a tiny little mistake. Or maybe it's fortune-telling, trying to predict a negative future without any actual evidence. Or mind-reading, assuming someone is mad at you just because they sent a really short text message. These distortions are the hidden engines driving your anxiety. Let's see how this builds using the ABC model, because this happens in a fraction of a second. Millisecond 1, an activating event happens, like getting a super vague email from your boss. Millisecond 2, a distorted belief instantly forms, something like, oh no, I'm getting fired. Millisecond 3, the painful emotional consequence hits you. Anxiety, dread, a racing heart. Most of us completely skip over millisecond 2. We just feel the terrible consequence. The blank space technique forces us to go back and catch that distorted belief. So, the real crucial point here is this. Once you have isolated this hidden, anxious thought in the blank space, how do you actually disarm it? Because it is not enough to just catch the thought. We have to restructure it so it stops causing us so much pain. We need a way to break the cycle between what happens, what we believe, and how we react. To do this, we can deploy the RADAR framework. This is a super powerful thought-stopping technique from our source material that gives us a concrete action plan to neutralize the anxiety. RADAR stands for Reflect, Describe, and Respond. It's a tool entirely designed to create intentional space between what you think and what you do next. Let's break down each of these steps. First up, we reflect. You take a step back from the reactive emotion and simply observe your mental content. You don't try to fix it right away. You definitely don't beat yourself up and say, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this. You just pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? What story am I actually telling myself about this situation? Reflection makes you aware of the thoughts that usually go entirely unexamined. Next, we describe. This is where you clearly and honestly articulate what you found during your reflection, and you use really neutral, specific language here. Instead of saying, everything is terrible and I'm a massive failure, you say, I am feeling afraid because I made a mistake on my project. Or simply, I am catastrophizing right now. By naming the thought or the pattern out loud, you shrink the chaos down to a tangible, manageable size. You completely contain it. Finally, we respond. Now that you've caught the thought and named it neutrally, you get to decide if the thought is actually helpful. Is it based on facts or just assumptions? If it's a cognitive distortion, you challenge it. You get to choose an intentional, value-based action or formulate a new, grounded belief. You step out of that chaotic flood of anxiety and stand right back on the solid ground of reality. By using this framework, we're making a fundamental, game-changing shift. We are moving far away from a blind autopilot reaction where unseen thoughts drag us through this terrible roller coaster of negative emotions, and we are moving toward a measured, intentional response. You officially become the active director of your mind rather than just a passive victim of its automatic chatter. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a challenge. The very next time you feel a wave of unexplained stress or dread, don't just suffer through it. Close your eyes, ask yourself, I am thinking, and wait right there in that quiet gap. Use the radar technique to examine whatever shows up. When you finally leave a deliberate blank space in your mind today, what hidden truth will step into the light? Give it a try and see what you uncover. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.